Good evening.
Okay. Can you just give me a brief about yourself, your experience at Technical?
Yeah, currently I'm working on the Synchrony Financial. It's a banking-based organization, and we are working on I'm working as a backend developer here. I have total 6.2 years of experience, and the relevant will be the 5.5. And current technology stack which we are using is like the Spring Boot, Java, Hibernate, Kafka, PCF, API Gateway, MySQL, Oracle, and Jenkins, Bitbucket, Newman, etc. These are the tech stack which we have been using in our um Splunk, Zira, and Conflex as well. And these are the tools actually which we are using as part of the project. Coming to the project is like I have developed around 12 services in the current project. Like these are the microservices, and the purpose of these services is like I'll say a few of them. These basically deals with the finance side. So for financing a credit card, so here we will be having the option called quick screen process and the retail card apply. So the purpose of the quick screen process is like whenever a particular person come and apply for a credit card, if it gets declined, what it does is like a check mark which will be registered at the credit bureau end on his name, because of which his credit score will be impacted. So so to avoid all these situations, we have brought up a service called quick screen process. So it basically takes few details of the customer, and whenever we use this quick screen process, it will tell him that how much credit he can get it. So if he's sufficient with the credit whatever has been getting, so he can come and apply on the retail card apply, and then once it has been successful, there will be a time gap of 30 days to dispatch the physical card to his location. Meanwhile, the account details will be shared through his email. So once this is done and the person is willing to do some shopping and all, so he want to pay his bills, so he can make use of another service called temporary shopping pass. So that will be valid for 30 days. So meanwhile, the user can do his shopping using this service.
I believe currently you're working on Java 8, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Which features have you used?
I have used the functional interfaces, lambda, streams, method references, optional object. One second.
Okay. Then, like, where have been Java Stream APIs introduced? Like, already we had collection APIs, right? So,
The
what are the advantages in that?
See, the collection object is for the storage of some data into that, and we will be using the iterators or the for loops to iterate that data and retrieve from that collection. But in case of the streams, that is, it has the two kinds of options. Like there are the intermediate operations and the terminal operations here. So, which in case the collections you cannot perform that, you need to iterate them, and we need to basically define your conditions. If you want to perform multiple conditions, we need to separately define all those things instead of defining it as part of the pipeline. Here in case of the streams, what we can do is like we can just put that data, we can use the stream API here, and we can pass that data into that pipeline, and we can use the operations provided by the streams like filter to perform some kind of operations, or else come mapping, or else once we done with these intermediate operations, we can use the for each we can use the collect method here to collect the data and give it back. These kind of operations we can perform on fly even without using the external
Name, name
conditions.
one or two intermediate and terminal operation.
Yeah, intermediate and the terminal operations are like intermediate means it will return you the stream API itself. Means whenever you do some operation, and it will return you the same stream as an output. When comes to the terminal operator, whatever the response which you are expecting, means like whether it could be a list, or else it could be a map, or else some kind of data as a string or somewhat. So this could be the terminal operations.
What is the difference between a predicate and a function?
I did not get you.
What is the difference between predicate and function?
Predicate and the function is like predicate is for to perform the some kind of testing, means like it internally uses the test method, means like you to give you the result. Here in the filter you will be using the predicate itself. You will be pass it has internally uses the predicate and perform the activity which internally uses the test and give you the boolean result out of it. Whereas the function is like in a function we will be having the apply method which gives you the, it takes one input and provides you the other as an output.
What are default methods?
Default methods are the methods which is present in the interfaces, like if there is an existing classes which has been implementing this interface, and if you want to specify there is some other new class which we want to make use of these default methods, so we need not to implement that in the all the classes, just we need to define the default method in that particular interface and we can make use of it in the newly added class.
So, what is a consumer and supplier? Java.
In
Consumer and supplier
con
functional interface.
consumer and the supplier is like consume, the word itself is says that you are taking some kind of data, means like one is to give the data and the other is to take the data.
Okay. Can you tell me how HashMap works internally in Java?
Yeah. Whenever we put something into the hash map, what it initially does is like it will generate an hash code for that particular key value what you are trying to put into the hash code. And once that hash code got generated, then it uses the hashing algorithm here and will pass the table length for that particular hash function, and it will calculate you the index to which location this whatever the data need to be persisted, means like bucket location, it gives you the bucket location. In that bucket location this data will be get stored. So in case of retrieval what it does is like it makes use of the same process, but in case of retrieval it checks for the first the hash code whether the both the hash codes are equal or not, and then once if the both the hash codes are equal, then it goes for checking of both the keys. If both the hash codes are equal, then it goes to the same bucket location and it will fetch the data from that based on the key.
What is the difference between a hash table and concurrent HashMap?
Hash table is like which is a synchronized collection, whereas the other one which you asked is a concurrent hash map, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, in case of the hash table, what it does is like the complete table will be blocked. Means like whenever you are trying to, there are two threads are trying to perform its activity on this hash table. What it does is like when one thread is performing its activity, the other thread will be completely blocked until unless it completes its activity. But in case of the concurrent hash map, what it does is like it will block only that particular portion which is trying to perform, one thread is trying to perform its activity, which remaining all the threads will be non-blocking and they can access and perform its operations.
Mhm. What is the like? Can you tell me about the exception hierarchy?
Means like from the throwable you're asking, from throwable to
Yeah,
exception,
yeah,
and so
right.
here the hierarchy is like first the throwable class, means like uh, first from the throwable we will be having the exceptions. There are two types of exceptions, like checked and unchecked exceptions. So checked exceptions are the compile time exceptions which we get it during the compilation, and the runtime exceptions are like uh, during the execution of the program we get this errors, means like array index out of bound exception, null pointer exceptions. These are the runtime exceptions which we get during the runtime of our program.
So how does a garbage collection prevent a Java application from going out of memory?
The garbage collection, it has three kinds of memories, like old generation, young generation, old generation, and perm gen. Uh, here initially means like if it performs the full GC, then it will perform all this like the permanent generation, young and old generation. It moves the data from one into the other. Means like whatever the unreferenced variables which are present, or else unreferenced variables as well as which has been not used from the long time. So it will collect all those data and it will move it into the old generation, and it follows the mark and sweep algorithm here. It will basically mark all the unreferenced variables first, and it will try to move that data into the um, old generation. So basically, this is how it works.
So what is concurrent modification exception? Like how do you deal with this kind of exception?
When you are trying to perform any kind of the list iteration, means like when we are trying to, once the list has been defined and we are trying to iterate it and trying to modify its size, during that time we get this concurrent modification exception, as the size has been already defined and we're trying to change that mod count. So during that time we get this exception.
So coming to like design patterns, which design patterns have you worked on?
I have used the facade design pattern, builder design pattern, adapter design pattern, singleton prototype. uh,
Okay. Tell me about builder design pattern, like where we will be using the builder design pattern.
Yeah, builder design pattern we have used is like whenever we have the email service. So email service consists of the multiple fields. So whenever there is a particular exception in the uh, particular block related to that particular service, we set only those fields to create that email service object. We use those fields and we set that into this email service, and we create that object and send it to the email service to trigger that particular email and send the notification for that service. So here the builder service is basically like creating an object uh, with the even with the one or zero or more objects or variables. Sorry.
So do you see any drawbacks with the singleton design pattern?
Uh, the singleton design pattern is like uh, basically uh, it creates only one instance for the complete JVM in case of Java, but in case of the Spring per application context, uh, the thing is like based on the uh, by default even the Spring Boot uh, Spring follows the singleton design pattern itself. If
Okay.
I hope so,
Okay.
I don't mm, know most about
That-
the default means like drawbacks of the singleton.
So why we use a factory class to instantiate a class when we can use a new operator, right?
We will be using the factory design pattern is like if you have an interface, and if there are a number of classes implementing that interface, and at the runtime we want to specify only the one single object need to be created. So during that time you will be passing this interface name, so that you will be passing the object what you are trying want to create. So it will take this name of that particular class, and at runtime it creates the object of this class instead of creating the specific one.
Okay. So web services, we have worked on RESTful web services. Okay.
Yes.
How did you secure your REST APIs?
Here we are using the API gateway for our services. So it internally provides us the OAuth 2 authentication. So we'll be using that OAuth 2 authentication client credentials for protecting our services.
Okay. Just tell me like how auto works, how
Means like
auto mechanism.
I did not get you. How?
So what two mechanism works? Can you tell
Yeah,
me?
here what works like whenever you give the client credentials, what it does is like we will be having the uh, here it will be generating you the token. Means like when you pass the uh, these client credentials, it generates the token and give back to the particular client. These client should come back with this token and need to validate himself, that stating that this is the valid token which has been given by you. So once that token has been validated, then only he will be allowed to make use of the resources. Means like there will be two types like a resource authorization server and the resource server. So here with authorization server is to validate, means like whether you are a valid user or not. Resource server is used once you validated, it will give you a token. You need to go with
Okay.
this token to that resource server stating that it has
Okay.
been validated. So please provide the valid resources for that.
Okay. So what do you mean by idempotent?
Item,
Idempotent.
yeah, idempotent is like here the getting of the same kind of data, means like without modifying every time, means like we can say the get method as idempotent, because whenever we use the get method, we will be getting the same kind of data instead of modifying it. But whereas the post method is a non-idempotent method, because every time we'll be getting some new resource whenever we try
So,
to push the data.
so can we maintain user session web services?
No, no, we cannot maintain. The RESTful API itself is designed in a such a way that um, representation state transfer is like here there won't be any kind of session between the client and the server. We need to manually implement it in our end, like to implement this session, or else any kind of cookies mechanism we need to use.
So can you use get method to create resource rather than post?
Get method is only to get the data, right? Post method is for you to pass some kind of data. Using the get method, what you can do is like you can basically pass your header parameters or query parameters, but you cannot pass your body using the get method. It's
Mm.
like there are a huge number of parameters and you want to do some kind of alteration. If you go with this get method, you need to pass all your data through the URL, which is not good to expose our data through the get method, which goes through
So
the browser.
can you tell me how to set different status code in the HTTP response?
Uh,
How can you set it?
yeah, here we can set the response codes whenever you complete your whenever you pass your request to the controller and your request has been processed and get back your some object, you need to create your response entity class object here, and you need to pass the object whatever you got to this response entity, and we need to specify the HTTP status code. Like if it is 200, we need to specify 200. If it is going to the exception handling block, and there you have been getting some kind of
Yeah, okay, fine. So what is the use of @XML root element annotation? Have you used it?
At the rate XML root annotation, I did not use it because that comes under the SOAP part, right? Means like SOAP services, we be basically using that annotation to annotate that root, that is the root element of that particular object, whatever we are trying to create.
Okay. So coming to Spring MVC, you have worked, right?
Yeah, means like right now we are using the Spring Boot completely.
Yeah. So in what are the different ways we can configure a class as a Spring Bean? In how many ways?
We can use in the two ways, like we can make use of the XML, or else we can make use of the annotations for configuring it.
Mm. So how can you get select context and config in a Spring Bean?
In Spring Bean,
How to get select context and config object in a Spring Bean?
here we can make use of the uh, in the Spring Boot. What we does is like we use the arguments means like whenever we call this run method, you will be getting that Spring application context here. From that application context, get the we can get the servlet context of that particular thing, whatever we are performing.
Mhm. Okay. So how will you handle exceptions in Spring MVC?
We can handle the exceptions even locally in the particular area where we are getting, means like if it is in this service layer or else DO layer, we can also do it in the global exception handling as well, means like creating our own uh, REST controller advice, and there we need to define all the exceptions, and we need to throw them from that particular service or DO layer, and we need to handle it at that position.
Did you work on Spring AOP as well?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So can you tell me like what is a joint point cat?
Yeah. Here, the purpose of the Spring AOP is like to perform the cross-cutting concerns. Here we have the join point is like at particular point, means like where you want to perform your advice. Means like uh, means like whenever there is particular thing happened, and you want to perform your logging or else from response time getting for that particular object, you specify that details to this join point. Means like there that point means like method name we specify to that. Here the point cut is the expression whatever we pass.
So coming to Spring Boot, what is the role of actuator in Spring
uh,
Boot?
the role of the actuator is like you want to get some metrics, means like health information and all. We can make use of the actuators endpoints, and we can get the details like CPU utilization, how many beans has been registered, like this kind of information we can get it using the actuators.
So how can you disable actuator endpoints accurate in Spring Boot?
We can make use of specifying the management endpoints, whatever we are specifying. We need to just remove all the management endpoints, or else we can directly use the at the rate Spring Boot application where we are using. We need to specify the exclude command there, and we need to specify the management endpoints related class name so that it excludes that.
So how will you reload your changes on Spring Boot application without restarting your server?
Here we need to configure the dev tools for that, so that whenever we change something, it automatically reloads the data.
So which build tool have you used to develop Spring Boot applications?
We use the Maven and both Gradle.
Okay. So how can you enable HTTP or SSL support in Spring Boot? Did you ever do that?
SSL support. We can
Enabling HTTP.
do it using the two ways by configuring it in the Spring Boot class directly in the application context. We can create and get that. We can configure it that through that, or else we can define it in the application dot properties. We need to specify the SSL properties details there.
Mhm. So have you implemented Swagger in Spring Boot?
Yeah, yes.
So what are Spring profiles?
The Spring profiles are like dev
Mhm.
QA and UAT. You whenever you do some kind of you specify specific properties to specific environment. So we use this Spring profiles, stating that when we deploy the application into the dev environment, make use of the dev properties. So through this we set the properties for that particular environment.
So do you have experience on CI/CD tools like Jenkins,
Yeah,
Puppet?
yes.
Did you configure Jenkins or you just?
Means like in the dev environment we can configure. We have done it twice. Like we did not get much chance. Previously it used to be done by the DevOps team. Recently they have given access to dev team as well to do the changes. but in the QA and UAT it will be done by the DevOps team.
So did you set up Jenkins jobs anytime?
Uh, till now I didn't do it. But we need to, whenever we create a Jenkins job, we need to first select which kind of application you are trying to configure, whether it's a Maven or a Gradle project. So you need to first select that. Then once we select that, we need to give the repo details for that. Means like from which location you are trying to get your data. And we also need to configure the details like whether you are trying to build your Jenkins pipeline every time whenever you give the build, or else based on manual triggering we need to specify that kind of details there. And apart from that, we if we have any other integrations like Sonar and all, we need to give that details, and we need to enable the notifications for that.
Okay, fine. So whenever you see a like broken build or a failed build for your project in Jenkins, so what will be the next step you will be
First
doing?
thing is like we will be checking the logs here. Why does the build got failed? If it's a compilation, or else if it's any other, means like if we could able to find that details in the logs, then we'll be try to resolve. Like if the issue is from the dev dev perspective, or else from the dev team, then we'll be fixing it by checking the logs. If not, we'll be contacting the DevOps team to check what makes the build failed.
So what is the version control system? Which version control system?
Bitbucket we are using here.
How about Git? Have you worked on Git?
Yeah, means like Git we will be using Git commands you will be using to push that data into the Bitbucket, right? I did not use the SVN. We use the Git commands to push that data into the push or fetch.
Mm, So, mm, so do you know the difference between clone and forking and cloning?
Cloning is creating of the existing project. Means like if you had any new project, you'll be cloning that project. Means like whereas fork is like if you are a new user, and this project want to be moved into your application, means like your Git location as well, then we'll using this fork to move that data.
So how will you resolve a conflict in Git?
Here means like first we will be whenever we try to push the data, if already a particular person has pushed that data, and if we get this some merge conflicts, we try to resolve that merge conflicts initially, like where we are getting the conflicts and all. So whenever you fetch that, whenever you use the checkout command, and during that time all your merge conflicts will be shown in the particular files. So we'll try to resolve them, and we use the merge command again to merge the data of both, and
So how
through
will you
this
fix a broken commit or to change the last commit? How will you do that?
we need to find first what is the last commit ID. Using that commit ID we can revoke the last commit changes, and then we'll push the new changes into that.
1 second. So coming to like, have you worked on JUnits? Did you write JUnits?
Yeah, yes.
Have you used Mockito framework? Which
Yes,
framework have you used?
Mockito.
Okay, so can you tell me what is the need for mocking?
See, whenever you have a controller layer and you have the service, you'll be using your service injection there. So to inject your objects, we'll be using this mock @mock annotation to mock that particular dependencies whatever we are specifying for the class, and then we use the inject mock to inject that mocks into this class. So whenever you run this service, what it happens is like whenever it come across these uh, dependencies, it use of the mock objects instead of those objects.
So are there any limitations with the Mockito framework?
We had the limitations like we cannot test the static blocks, we cannot test the new whenever create the new objects, we cannot test them. We need to use the power mock in that situation to
So
test
how,
this kind
how,
of.
how, how can we ignore or avoid executing set of tests like that?
We need
How
to
can you?
specify the test suite for that, and whatever the test classes which you are trying to run, we need to just specify those class names so that it avoids the other classes.
So what are the different methods of exception handling in JUnits? Like how
Different.
in, yeah, I mean, how can you, in how many different ways can you? Okay.
Here we can make use of means like handling of the exception in the JUnit, or else to find the
Yeah,
what kind of exception
handling,
we are getting.
handling like different methods of exception handling JUnits.
We need to specify test, and we need to specify what kind of exception we are trying to get. So we need to we can make use of that in the previous JUnit 4. Right now we can make use of like asset throws, and we need to specify what kind of exception it is going to throw, and we need to specify that as annotation as exception class name, and then we need to use the lambda expression here and execute that function so that it throws.
What are parameterized tests?
Parameterized test is like whenever you want to perform the multiple kind of set of data, means like if you want to specify the group of strings, and you want to perform the conditions on that particular method, you want to pass all kind of tests to that. So we make use of this parameterized test, and we specify all kind of test cases there so that it execute at once, all of them.
So coming to microservices, can you tell me like how will you handle any service failures if there are multiple services in your application, any of the service fails, right?
So here we can make use of the circuit breaker pattern here. We can specify like if there is any kind of alternative approach for that, we need to specify that using the fallback mechanism, so that whenever this particular service get fails, it goes to that alternative service and try to hit and fetch that data. So it will initially check for 2 to 3 times like whether the service is down, then it immediately goes to that fallback mechanism again whenever the new request comes. So initially there will be a time frame of 2 to 3 minutes, like after that it again comes to this service itself to check the whether the service is up, so it will get the data from that. If not, again it will check for 2 to 3 times and then goes back to this fallback mechanism again.
What is service discovery? How is it helpful in the microservices?
Service discovery, we can make use of the Eureka server here, like to register it as a server as well as the client, so that whatever the clients which we are trying to create will get registered with this Eureka server. So whenever we are trying, we can directly open the Eureka dashboard and check like what are the registered services with the Eureka. So whenever we are trying
So
to
how do
perform.
microservices communicate with each other?
Here we can make use of the REST template, or else we can make use of the web client or Feign client for communication between the services.
Okay. So what is the need of containers like in microservice architecture?
Containers are like deploying the applications into that particular instance. Means like when it comes to the PCF, we has here the DGO cells, where inside that DGO cell it has an instances like it fetches the which instances which container this application need to be uh, hosted. Means like whenever you push that application into the particular PCF environment, it checks for the details like which are the instances are empty, so it get that details and push that into the in that particular instance. I'm
So
not
what is
sh-
the API gate?
API gateway is like it acts as an proxy layer for you. Means like whenever it not only acts as a proxy layer, it also provides you the analytics, which also makes you configure your complete service in the AppG as well. Means like you can make use of it as an aggregator pattern as well. Means like it can communicate with multiple services at a time and fetch the data from multiple services, and we can aggregate those results and give back to the client. We can do a number of changes, like we can get the result from
Okay.
one service.
So what is the need for container orchestration? Have you heard about Kubernetes?
uh, that's what I was mean to say, like Docker and Kubernetes I did not work on.
But you have knowledge, right?
Yeah, means like basically Docker we used for creating the Docker images, and we host
Mm.
them onto the Kubernetes container like pods. So means like I have basic idea, not complete on them. Means like not real time knowledge.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So how can you achieve like zero downtime during the deployments, the microservices?
We need to
DevOps.
use, we will be here we are using the blue green deployment pattern, so that what it does is like it makes your application be 24 by 7. So initially we'll try to deploy the application onto the green. So if it's well, it is successful, and it if it doesn't goes any kind of issues, then we'll just route that details once we have been done with the blue deployment as well. Just the routes will be changed.
So how can we ensure data consistency in the microservice based architecture?
Data consistency is like if we need to use um, some kind of messaging queues here, so that what it does is like whenever the particular service performs its activity, it updates this service. Means like it pushes its data into this, and if we go with the event driven architecture, at least we can minimize those things.
Mm. So database, which database have you used mostly?
MySQL means like there is very less interaction for us, because mostly we will be dealing with the third-party decision-making systems like Genesis and the Surveyor. So there will be only insertion and the retrieval part in the MySQL. That too very less.
But you are comfortable, right, on
Yes,
writing
yes,
that
yeah,
query?
yeah, yes,
So did you work on Spring Data JP as well?
yeah, yes.
Mm. Hibernate or JP?
JPA I have used.
Mm. So what is an entity? Can you tell me what is an entity in JP?
Entity is like the particular object which you are trying to create, and map it to the any table. Means like uh, entity is nothing but an object actually, which is which you are trying to map it to a table in the
Are there
database.
any rules to create a JP entity classes
Yeah, means
using
like we need
methods?
to annotate it with @entity, and then we need to specify the table name using @table, to which table you are trying to map this entity. So we specify that details, and then we use the column names as for specifying all the
What
columns.
are the generation strategies,
Uh,
primary key generation.
we can make use of the identity, or else we can make use of sequence. There are different kinds of strategies for creating that means like IDs.
Yeah, yeah.
We have auto as well.
Coming to AWS, do you have any knowledge on AWS? Or
Um,
do you have?
yeah. Previously, I used AWS in Cognizant. We have used the EC2 instance. We have used S3 bucket, SNS service. Only these three services I know.
Okay. Just tell in one line like what is S3, why it is used in
Yeah,
GCP.
S3 is for the storage purpose actually. If you have a huge amount of data, basically we go with the S3 to store that.
What is the horizontal and vertical scaling in AWS?
Um, in terms of PCF, I can say I'm not sure about the
Yeah, yeah, that's
AWS. The horizontal and the vertical scaling is like if you want to perform increase the resources itself, means like if there is a one resource present, and if that resource has to be increased, means its capacity is only 2 GB and you want to increase its capacity there, which states that it's a horizontal scaling. Actually the vertical scaling is like scaling of the instances, number of instances, if you want to increase 1 2 3. So basically we go with this vertical scaling.
Fine, Rajeshwar, I think I'm done. Do you have any questions?
Means like just want to know, like, is it for completely for the USD global, or else do you need
No,
to work
it's
on
for
the any client?
yeah, it's for one of the client banking domain.
Okay, okay. May I know the client name, please?
Client name is TSYS, Global Payments Bank.
Okay, okay, sure. Yeah. Thank you so much.
What's your total experience?
Total is 6.2.
6.2.
Yeah, yes.
You're from Hyderabad location?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Fine, Rajeshwar, thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank
Our
you
team
so
will
much.
get back to you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.